Hi, I'm Shantanu De. I'm going to walk you through the cloud formation based automated deployment of MyBB, which is a PHP and MySQL based application on the cloud. So the requirements are to deploy PHP and MySQL based forum application in AWS in a high availability mode and use cloud formation to automate that deployment, make it configurable, and also scalability is needed to automatically scale it up and down. So what is designed is basically a multi-instance cluster based on auto scaling, and this cluster is distributed across multiple availability zones so that there is sufficient high availability considerations across zone failures. Dedicated VPC is used instead of the default VPCs. That makes things much more complex in terms of the configuration. Then for the MySQL database, RDS is used where AWS manages the complexity of the scalability and availability. Auto-scaling group is used for connecting the load balancer into the cluster so that the load balancer can automatically connect to the running instances, and whenever the instances are down or changed, it doesn't impact the traffic. Pictorially, this is how the design looks like. There are two availability zones that are used, US West 1A and US West 1B. The ELB, the web server cluster, and the RDS are all distributed across. However, we are using our own VPC, dedicated VPC, and that is why we also have to configure the security group separately. We cannot use the default security group. Okay, that's a summary of the solution. Then in terms of the deployment design, it's completely scripted and automated. It uses the JSON template for CloudFormation. Also, I have done the AWS CLI based scripts to check the status, deploy the cloud-based CloudFormation based stack, and also delete it at the end of the day. Right, so with this, let's start off. So in order to get started, you need to have have access to Amazon EC2 Cloud, and we need to have a key pair created beforehand. Once that is done, then we can basically start launching the instances using a template from the CloudFormation. So here, as you can see right now, the instances are 0. They're not much. There is some default security group, of course, associated with the default VPC and so on. So let me go to the CloudFormation. So here we will start seeing the stacks, the technical name for a bunch of resources in CloudFormation. So we'll launch a stack from our script. So before I launch it, let me show you that I have created the scripts for getting the status of the stacks and all that thing from a script. So for example, this particular script describes the entire region, including what are the stacks in different status. Right now nothing is running, and also it also describes you the a list of instances and VPCs, etc., etc. So this is quite useful. Now I'm going to start launching the instance from the command line. Before I do that, maybe I can just quickly show you the script. So here, as you can see, I have a set environment.sh script. This is the script for setting the region and setting the Amazon credentials. So I'm not going to show that set env, but that is where you can change your keys. And it essentially calls the AWS CLI commands to do a local validation first to save time. If the template has some error, the local validation saves some time. And then, of course, it goes into the cloud deployment by calling the create stack command. So that's about it, pretty simple. I'm going to start launching it. So once this launch process is started, I should be able to go to the CloudFormation CLI, the web console, and also see in real time how the progress is going on. As you can see, there is a create in progress for my BB HS stack, and if I click on it and select the details, then I can see what are the resources that are getting created and so on. right? But it will take a while before it can be completed. So I'll just pause the recording for a moment and come back when it's done. Okay, so looks like the template has created the stack. It took about 20 minutes. So all the resources are done. Now let me go to the output tab and grab the URL of the load balancer and test if all the underlying services are also running. Okay, great. So this page actually says that the web server is running with the PHP modules working fine. It also able to connect to the RDS database using MySQL connection string and so on. It's good. So, however, the rest of the resources that are created in the EC2, we can have a quick look at them. So, of course, let's start with the instances. Um, as we can see, there are 3 instances running. Potentially, the NAT is also created one more instance. Yep. So 3 instances running. There are some old instances terminated before. Let's look at the launch configuration and the auto scaling group. So this is the launch configuration, which is associated with the correct security group, and size is right now micro. Let's go to the auto scaling group, where the auto scaling group associates with the number of instances managed automatically. Yep. Okay. Um, so we can also look at the RDS. We have one instance of RDS, which is already 91% utilization because it's a DB T1 micro in the free tier. Potentially, I should use a better size for proper production or staging kind of usage. But this all looks good. Now let's start also creating a command for deleting this. And in the meantime, I'll also, while the delete will go on, deleting the stack and all the resources, I can also show you the template that is used for creating this stack. So here is the template using which we have managed to create the um, instances on the cloud using CloudFormation. So this is the CloudFormation JSON template. Quickly going through, not getting into too much detail. There are a few areas it still needs to be cleaned up. I'll tell you that as well. So first of all, there are some mappings and parameters are like static data or parameters that can parameterize from the command line and so on. There is VPC resources, and because it is a multi-AZ deployment, there are more than one subnets, subnet 1 and subnet 2. I also have additional private subnets which are not really used in this case. Then we have the load balancer. So if I look at the load balancer, it essentially load balances on port 80, and it is connected to the public subnet 1 and public subnet 2. It also have the security group setting attached to it. Then let's look at um, there are 2 different security groups, one for the web and one for the um, database using the 3306. Let's also look at the MySQL database. This is RDS managed, so there is no instance number specified, just the parameters for DB and so on, so that this can be used from the launch configuration of the instances for correctly connecting into the database. So that's something important. So let's look at the launch configuration in a little bit more detail. So if you look at the launch configuration, this already does the HTTPD, PHP install, and also PHP module for talking to MySQL. Few other information here. For example, it also checks the, it also uses the signaling method for, where's the signal? Yeah. So here is something, right? Um, in this whole big launch configuration, there is a bunch of settings that are used to configure the instance with database connectivity string, to configure the instance with the mybb, which is the package for running the you know board as a PHP application. So those information is actually created as long as the instance as soon as the instance is launched. So, and also here is the signaling. So this is used by the AWS to assess if this instance is up and running, and if the signals are not, if the signal setting is not correct, then probably there will be some problem during the instance launch. So this being the template which is used for creation, let me now go back for the last time into the EC2 console and see how the deletion is going on. Yeah, delete in progress. So that's about it.